Hello there, it's Jan here from JB Crafts, and I'm back today with my next tutorial for you. So today is 1st of October, and a couple of months ago I launched a sketch challenge on the 1st of each month. So we've done a couple, and those are on the channel if you want to look back from in a playlist under sketch challenge. But today is number 3 in that challenge, so I've got a different sketch for you. These are ones that I've created myself. I've created a project and then I've actually made the sketch for it, so nice and simple. So this one is almost a 7x5 design. It's sort of arrived at the size because of the way that I've made the card, and I'll explain that when we get into the actual tutorial. So almost 7x5, so 7x5, and it's going to be a book fold, so it's going to open this way. And I basically wanted sort of this, what's tend to referred to as triptych. So you've got those 3 panels. Now those 3 panels can be absolutely anything. They could be pattern papers, they could be cardstock. I've actually chosen to emboss mine, so mine are going to be little embossed panels. It could be a photograph that you chop into 3, but just splitting it into those 3 parts. They don't even have to be equal parts. I chose, because of the size that I ended up with, I chose to split mine into 3 equal strips, but you could have a slightly wider one in the middle, 2 narrow ones at each side. And this is the beauty of having a sketch. It's just to give you a starting point, and then you interpret it how you wish. And I know there's been several of you joining in with these challenges. I love seeing your versions of what I've done on the tutorial and how you've incorporated things in your stash. The whole ethos of the channel is that you don't have to have exactly the same items that I'm using. I want you to look in your stash and see what you could use to create the technique that we're doing. It's not about, having to go out and get what I've got. I've been delving into my stash. I've got some of my stuff I've had for 20 odd years. It's been really nice to actually look at some of the older stuff again. I am actually going to use a Crafter's Companion embossing folder today for my technique, and if I show you what I've actually made, this is the card that we're actually going to pop together. So this is my interpretation of the challenge, and I do like to do the sketches pretty much the size of the card so that it looks, in proportion. So this is what I've chosen to do. I've got my card blank. I've actually popped a couple of matte layers in again, which again is optional. You may only want to put the 1 in there. And then I've split my embossed panel into the 3 columns to make my design, and then interpreted this part as a tag. I like the little tags with the sentiments on. And then we've got that horizontal piece and the bow made with twine. So I'm going to show you how I've made this. I've used some of my oxide inks. So I chose 3 colours that are analogous colours, which means that they are on the they're next to each other on the colour wheel. And again, if you think about the rainbow, we've got the pink, orange, yellow. You're fairly certain that if you're going to blend those colours, they're going to blend nicely into each other. If they sit next to each other on the rainbow, you're not going to get any kind of that muddiness when you blend them together. So we've gone from that yellow into the orange into the pink there. Absolutely perfect. So we're going to be using those with my blending brushes. And then I've also added some gold ink over the top of here, and I'll show you how I've done that in the tutorial, just to highlight the actual embossing. And then I've decorated the inside. I actually had a slightly bigger panel when I first started, so I'd cut the edge off and thought, yep, can use that on the inside, Jan, why not, just to link it. And again, I've gone around the edge of my panel with some of the fossilized amber just to link it all together. So yeah, really nice and straightforward, but you've got some impact, and it's very tactile with that embossing on there. You can use any of your embossing folders. So let's pop the sketch to one side for a second, and I'll show you the one that I've used. This is actually one called Garden Roses, and it's a 2D embossing folder, and I think it was part of their what they called their illustrated embossing folders. And it's just a little 6x4, so it's nice and easy to manage, and it's got that beautiful, you can see that rose and those lovely rose leaves in the background there. So we're going to actually emboss the panel, but first I want to add my colours to it. So we're going to colour the piece of cardstock with some Distress Oxide inks. Then we're going to pop it through the embossing folder. Then I'm going to highlight that embossing, and I'm going to use my metallic gold ink pad from Spectrum Noir to do that. And I'll show you that in a second. So let's pop some bits and pieces to one side. I have got a panel of smooth white cardstock here, and this has actually been cut down to 5 3/4 in height by 3 3/4 in width. So that just fits nicely. It's just a little bit smaller and just encompasses that detail in the embossing folder. It just covers that area nicely. So what we're going to do first is actually colour this one. So I'll pop my card over there out of the way for a second. I'm going to bring in my craft mat just to protect the surface of my desk here. I'm also going to bring in my little ink stand so that these are not wobbling all over the place, and I've got my blending brushes to correspond with those three colours that we're going to use. Okay, so I'm going to start at the top with the yellow, which was the fossilized amber, and I want to sort of work in about thirds. So I'm literally just going to load up my brush applicator there, and if you don't have the brushes, you can do this with a sponge applicator like the ones, I mean, I use a mixture of things. You can use these to create your backgrounds. I know some of them have the rectangles on, some of you guys have those flat brushes. Absolutely whatever you prefer to get this colour down, and I'm aiming for about a third of the way down the card. So I'm going to bring that line across here so that I know where I'm working to. Keep picking up the ink, and then just get this blended onto the cardstock there. Okay, so layering it up, just laying it over the top of each other until you've got the sort of saturation that you're happy with the cardstock. So I'm just going to keep going over the top. I want it to be quite a solid colour so that it shows through nicely through that embossing. I'm not too worried if it's a little bit blotchy. It does tend to dry out much more smooth when the inks have dried. So that's my yellow. I am just going to clean this so that I don't contaminate my brushes. I do have a brush pretty much for each colour family. So I'm going to pop that yellow one to one side and bring in the orange, and that one is Spiced Marmalade. And we're going to pop that one in there and bring in the orange blending brush, and I'm going to come sort of down to the next third with the colour now. So again, I tend to sort of come down the edge and then mark out where I want it to come to. Just give me a rough idea, and then I can fill in that gap with my colour then. Again, just layering it up until I've got the saturation that I'm happy with. And then we're just going to go over that seam where the two meet and create a little bit more of a sort of blend in the middle there. So I think I'm happy with that one for the time being. So that's the orange. I'm going to bring my yellow brush back in, and I'm going to come from the yellow section now. Not put any more ink on. I'm just using what's left on the brush. And I've got a little bit of a sort of shape there with the orange, so I am going to grab just a bit more of that yellow ink so that we can just go over that bit and push it back a little bit so it doesn't look as obvious. The embossing will actually, you know, push it back anyway. So that's that yellow. Pop that one back, and then we're going to bring in the pink. And for the pink, it's one of my favourite pinks, this. I chose the Worn Lipstick. It's a nice sort of tone with the ones that we've got here. So we'll pop that one on. I'm going to flip this round now and work the other way. Just make sure that we get rid of some of that orange again so that we don't contaminate. And I'm also going to bring in, I've got a piece of my tape here, and I just tend to use this. I stick my fingers to it so that I can hold the card and not end up getting covered in ink, and also I don't bleach the ink out with my fingers. So again, we're going to fill that brush with some of the pink ink. I'm going to come in from the bottom now, pretty much up to where that orange is, and then we'll do a blend where those two meet again. So again, just laying down the colour until you've got the saturation that you're looking for. And once you're happy with that, we can do that blend over that middle section again where they two meet. And I'm going to push that pink up into the orange there so that we've got that nice seamless blend there in the middle. I think I'm just about okay with that now. You can see there we've got that lovely sort of ombre effect there from one colour down into the next. So that's my inking complete. We'll pop that to one side. I'll give this a little bit of a wipe. And then I'm going to pop some, because these are water reactive, I'm actually going to put some splats of ink on here as well. So I've got my paintbrush at the ready and my water spritzer. So you can spray straight onto here, but I prefer a little bit more control with the paintbrush so that you can decide where you want to put it. And I'm just going to drop that water all over, go off the edge so that you get those edges as well. And it'll start, you can see it starting to do its thing already, and it sort of works with the ink, it pushes it about, and you get these lovely speckles. So once you're happy with that, we can clean up the excess water, and the longer you leave that water, the more sort of reaction you will get with it. But I am literally going to sort of blot it. I am just going to lift that ink off. I'm going to use my kitchen towel here, and I tend to just pop it. I use the roll for pressure just to bring it across here, and you can see we've got some of those lovely splatters. Now if it's very, very wet, I would give it a blast with the heat tool, but this one's not too damp, so I'm going to pop it straight in my embossing folder. So we'll get rid of the mat there. We'll bring the embossing folder back in, and I'm going to make sure mine is the coloured side of the embossing folder is the top, so I want my colour facing that top section there. So I'm going to lay it inside, make sure that it's reasonably square inside there like so, and then we're going to pass that through our die cutting machine. So mine is a Gemini, so I just need my either two clear plates or two white plates. I just happen to have one of each because that's what's in play at the minute. They're exactly the same, just one's clear, one's coloured with the white. The white ones were launched with the Gemini 2. These ones were launched with the original Gemini. And I'm just going to pass that through my machine, which sits behind me here in the craft room. So I do have to pop off camera just for a second, but it doesn't take that long to actually do the job there. So we can bring that back out now, get rid of those, and we should have that really nice embossed effect in here. Now there's a couple of things you can do at this point. You can leave it as it is. So if you can just get that in the light there, you can see that lovely embossing. Sometimes it's easier to see the deboss side there, but we've actually got that detail just raised. So you can leave it like that if you wish. If that's the look you want, you can split this into sections. You could have actually done your inking this way and split it. You know, you could do landscape. So again, lots of different ways of doing this. But I wanted to highlight the embossing now. So what you can do is you can go over with the colours themselves and actually bring the depth of colour up. But like I said, what I want to do is bring in that gold. It's a metallic gold, and I've moved that out of the way. I'm just going to have a bit early with that because I want to catch the gold if need be. And these have got a sponge pad on them, so they're really nice and gentle. So I don't need to apply too much pressure. I am literally just going to skate it over the top, and all I want to do is catch the embossing that's raised. If I press too hard, it's going to go into the background, and I don't particularly want that. I want it just to create like an outline on the embossing, and I tend to come at it from all sides so that you're catching that embossing all the different ways. So top to bottom, left to right, round and round, so that you're getting it from all different angles and it's catching all the sides of the embossing there. And I've learned from my own sort of mistakes here that it's knowing when to stop, because I get to this point and think, oh, I'll just put a bit more on, and then I end up adding too much. So just stop when you've got that coverage on there, and that's enough of it. Now that will stay wet for a little while, so I am just going to give it a quick blast with my heat tool now. Because the metallic inks are pigment, it doesn't dry quite as fast as an ordinary ink, so I'm just going to pop that on and give it a little blast to make sure that that ink has set over the top of the embossing there. It doesn't take long, and I don't want to apply too much heat because I don't want to warp the cardstock too much. Okay, so again, I think we were okay with that. There's a little bit there. And what I want to do now is bring in my guillotine to chop this into 3 sections. And this is how I arrived at the sizing, because I'd cut this to fit my folder. So if you remember, we said we started with a 6x4 inch folder. It's not very often that the embossing goes edge to edge. So I cut this at 5 3/4 by 3 3/4. So it was just 1/4 of an inch less on sides, which has given me an 1/8 of an inch border. Now the fact that it was 3 3/4 split really nicely into 1 1/4 inch panels. So dividing this by 3, I came up with, and that's what these measure. They are 1 1/4 inches by the 5 3/4. So if I just bring in my guillotine now, and I'm just going to chop that down the middle. So well, not down the middle, we're going to chop it into those 3 sections. So I've got it measuring at 3 3/4. I'm actually going to come to the 1 1/4 mark, line it up, and take that outside edge off, like so. And then I've still got 2 panels left, so I'm going to do the same again at 1 1/4 inches and split that. And then keep them in the order that you did them so that your pattern is continuous through them. It's not the end of the world. If you've got an all over folder that's a bit of an abstract pattern, it doesn't really matter. But you can see where mine flows here, the leaf particularly into this one. And then I've got this leaf flows into this one. So I want to keep them in that order. And I'm going to prepare those with some foam tape. I want to pop these onto the top of my next panel with some foam tape. So I've got my very, very large reel of Sticks to foam tape. And what I'm going to do is turn these over and just pop, and it's only 1 millimetre this, so it's not creating a massive amount of height. If you want a little bit more, you can add a deeper tape. I tend to just buy the 1 mil, and then if I do want it any deeper, I just double it up. It saves having lots of different rolls hanging about. So I'm going to keep that there in that order. This is the central one. So again, we're going to bring that tape onto here, and I'm just going to pop a strip up each side and then cut that with my scissors so that it's got some nice support there, like so. Keep that one in the center so that I've got that pattern running in the right place, and then we'll do that last one and we'll add those, and those are ready then to add to our project when we've done a little bit of matting and layering. So that's that last one there, just with my tape at the ready, and then I can pop that out of the way and keep that one so that I've got those in the right order there. So we'll pop those to one side, and then I'll bring in the rest of my layers. So I've got, as I say, it's just under a 7x5 card, purely because of what was going on with the sizing here. I like the frame around the card to be the same, so if I've left it 7 inches, it would have just been that little bit taller. So all I've done is cut 1/4 of an inch off that 7 inch height. So I'm 6 3/4 by 5 inches, which when I'd built up the mats and layers just fit perfectly. And then I wanted something that toned in with these colours, but that wasn't as vibrant. I want this to be the star of the show. So I just picked up a peachy tone out of my scrap card. And this measures 6 1/4 by 4 1/2. So I've come down 1/2 inch, which is going to give me a nice white border all the way around the card. And I've actually put some double-sided tape on here purely because we're going on to some pearlescent card. I made my card blank out of some pearlescent, well, Centura pearl, and I've chosen the hint of gold one because we're working with some nice warm colours. So all we're going to do is pop this one flat and centre that in the middle of that card there and get that one stuck down. And then I wanted to pick up the gold that we'd used from here. So I have some antique gold in my stash, which I think is a Creative Expressions product. And I just thought it was the perfect shade. It was almost spot on for that gold that I've used in the ink there. So we're going to put this one on as well. And this one's going to go on here like so. And I'm actually going to bring in my my tape runner for this one, I think, because it's a pearlescent card. And sorry, I've not said that one, have I? This one measures 6 by 4 1/4. So I've got those slightly different borders again. I've got a wider one here, 1/4 of an inch here, and then 1/8 of an inch on the peach showing. I like those sort of staggered sizes. So I'm just going to bring in my dot runner there and add some tape around the edge in the middle there. And then we'll get this one stuck down as well. So I just want to centre this one now in the middle of that peach layer. And once I'm happy with that, we can get that one stuck down. Give it a nice press to secure those little sticky dots on the back. And then, oh, I've done it again, haven't I? I've done it again. I always do. I needed to stick these to this before I did that because we're going to add some twine. So let me see. The dots are usually quite forgiving. Yep. Oh, I do it every time. Yep. Whew. So let's bring that back in so it doesn't stick to the desk. And what I actually want to do is pop these on here first so that we can pop the twine. The twine just went round the top 2 layers and not the peach layer. So yeah, crisis averted. So we're going to take the backing off our embossed pieces now. Then we'll take that release paper off. And then what I tend to do, if I've got anything that involves the 3s like this, I tend to place one of the outside ones first. And I'm going to sort of look at the distance around the edge. So I've got, again, about 1/8 of an inch, sides, top and bottom. And then get that piece laid down. So this is even round here. And then instead of going on to the middle one and then getting this one wonky, I'm going to leave that middle one while last. And I'm going to put the right-hand side one on. So again, if we take that release paper away, I'm going to eyeball that same kind of distance at this side here. So that I'm looking at the top and the bottom, and now along that right hand side. And once I'm happy with that, we can get that one stuck in place. And now we can centre this one in between the 2. Okay, so we know that exactly how much gap's left. And I find that the easiest way of getting those spaces even when you're working in any kind of, doesn't have to just be 3. If it was a panel of 4, I would still do the outside ones first. I would probably mark the centre of the card so that I could then work with the other 2. But on this case, we can now look and eyeball that gap so that it's pretty much even between the 2. And we've got them all lined up nicely. And then I've got some baker's twine. This is a Creative Expressions product, and this one's actually got a little tiny gold thread in it. So I'm actually going to use some of that round the card. And if I can get it back off the mat, we will turn it over and adhere this to some of the dots that are on the back. I'll use those to my advantage. And I'm just going to go round a couple of times like so. And then I'm going to stick that again to those dots. It was almost as if I planned it, wasn't it? There we go. Put that to one side. And now we can actually put this onto our card blank. So I am going to reapply, because I've been handling it, I am going to reapply those dots. You can stay there and stop being cheeky. Does anybody else talk to... Oh, my dots are out now. Okay. I think I have another one. Does anyone else talk to their crafting? I'm the world's worst at it. I'm always talking to the craft products and the craft things, especially if they start misbehaving. There we go. And then we can bring that card blank back in and re-stick that one. So like I said, crisis averted. I'm that eager to get going with it that I nearly always forget that whether it's ribbon or twine. There we go. And there's not enough of that to cause a problem with regards to sticking it down. So that's that background then. So we're almost there now. I just want to pop some sort of sentiment on. So if we bring this back in, you can see we've got that, the background card. I actually put one layer on my sketch, but there's nothing to stop you doing that second layer. Again, it's your interpretation of the sketch. We've got our horizontal. You've heard me say many times that if I'm working with anything vertical, I like to go across it on the horizontal. And then I'd got a sentiment with a little bow, and I'm going to do the bow in the same twine. Now I interpreted the sentiment into a little tag this time, and I've popped a hole and a little yellow eyelet in there just so that it all tones in. And I've stamped that one from my vintage butterfly sentiments there. I love these sentiments that have got the little butterflies attached to them, so they're just for you. Fit on there perfectly, and this is just a set of tag dies that I use time and time again. It really is a nice set of nesting tag dies with the stitch detail that I've used to cut it out first, then stamped my little sentiment inside. Now I'm going to pop some foam tape on the back of this one again. But if you are conscious about mailing things, you know, you can always, anything that we pop up with foam, you can always put flat on your design. So don't worry about that. And all I'm going to do is pop a piece across the top there. And I'm also going to go across that bottom edge as well, like so. And then the twine will sit in the middle. Okay, now just before we do that, I'm going to take a length of the twine again, and I want to tie my bow through the little tag. Okay, so I'm actually going to pop this through the eyelet, and I fold it in half, pass it through there, and then all I like to do is bring this and pop the tails through there to secure it, and then I'm going to tie the bow once it's in situ on the card. So again, we'll take off that backing and get this one stuck in place, and then we just need to tie the bow on there. So that one's going to go, you can go straight, I just wanted to go at a slight angle there and get that one stuck down. And I've just added a tiny little bit of colour to my butterfly there and a little gem in the centre. And then once we've got this in place, now I sometimes find it easier to tie these once you've got it in situ, because you're not handling it and knocking it about then. So again, we've got that bow, and you can adjust the loops on there to suit the project. And once you're happy with that, I'm just going to snip off those edges so that they're not overhanging the card, and that is the bulk of the design finished. So you can see where we've got those matte layers in the background. We've used our embossing folder to create the 3 focal point panels. I've got my tag for the sentiment, and I've added my bow to the actual tag rather than trying to do it all in one piece with the horizontal twine. And then of course on that last one, you know me well by now, any of you that's been watching, you know that my cards are never ever finished until they've got the little gems on. So these are just a gold flat backed gem. I thought that fit perfectly with the gold accents, and again I've just scattered them through the sentiment just to draw your eye to that sentiment there, and then added my stamped greeting inside with a little bit of the scrap that was left over. This time I cut the card to the right size. I'd actually started on a slightly bigger piece of card last time, which is why I had this scrap left over. So if you want to do that, just cut this first bit a little bit wider, and you can slice the edge off it if you want to decorate the inside of the card there. Just added a little stamp butterfly to link with this one, and that is my take on today's sketch for the October sketch challenge. Okay, so those were my colours again if you just popped in. Got the worn lipstick. Let's pop them the right way around now because we went up from the bottom like so. Fossilized amber, spice marmalade, and worn lipstick in the oxides. And then over the top, I added that lovely metallic gold pigment ink from Spectrum Noir. Okay, just to highlight the embossing. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you'll come and joining. If you want to track me down on Facebook, I have the same JB Crafts Facebook page, and I usually put a post up about the sketch challenge for the beginning of the month, and you can post underneath there and come and join in and have a go and look at your own interpretations. I know there's several of you been joining in over the last couple of months, which I thank you. It's giving you a little bit of idea, you know, just as a card design. It could be, you know, you could translate this into a Christmas card. I am about to start my Halloween projects. You could translate it into that. So however you want to go with it. I just wanted something nice and fresh today using those inks. I was missing my inks. I've not used them a lot. So yeah, I love my oxide ink. So that was my take on it today. So if you've enjoyed it, consider giving it a thumbs up for me. I would love you to subscribe if you haven't done already, and I'll be back very soon with another tutorial for you. So enjoy the rest of the day, whatever you're doing, and I'll see you very, very soon. Bye bye now.